Hello everybody, it's me Ross, and welcome to a historic game day extra time. A new dawn has arisen, a new era, new era at Ipswich Town has happened. I think you already know what's been going on. The takeover has been confirmed, and I cannot wait to get the thoughts from the game day extra time posse. We are joined by Jon Watson and co, as I said on the main pod, but the co are also fantastic gentlemen. David, Liam, and Harvey, and Ben are joining me to talk about the takeover. Look at Marcus Evans' tenure as owner for the last 13 years, and also look ahead to a game. There's also a game this weekend. I think after the Rochdale game, we sort of said, yeah, let's not have any more games, but the takeover has taken over the news. So we're going to get right into that. So the first person I'm going to go over to is a man that I haven't really spoke to him about much about the takeover. So David, you knew I was going to go over to you first. So your
I guess
thoughts,
because I've not been around for a while, have I?
Yeah, you have been around. I'm sure people are interested to hear what you got to say about the takeover. Are you happy?
Yes. I'm not as ecstatically sort of over the moon and sort of coming over all unnecessary and running around North Wales with my todger out, as some people might be. But yeah, I'm pleased it's been done. I have some concerns. Not concerns. I've got a few sort of caveats in the back of my mind, because owners aren't always the best thing when they come in. Everybody gets all excited. We were all excited by Marcus Evans all of those years ago. Blackburn were very excited by Venky's. Sheffield United were excited when the Sheikh took over. You know, there's a lot of sort of precedent for excitement turning into a mess. Aston Villa had a really good time for a couple of years under Randy Lerner until he lost interest and decided to play golf or something. So, yes, I'm pleased it's been done. I think I'm reasonably hopeful, especially having watched all of these sort of extensive interviews and things yesterday. I think that one thing that is good is that they seem to be football people, which I think is, when we'll come on to this later, but I think it's one of Marcus Evans' biggest problems is the fact that he didn't understand the industry. So I'm quietly optimistic about it, but I'm not completely overboard about it either. So yeah, I'm pleased. And my biggest thing, it just puts to bed all the absolute rank bollocks all the time about fucking takeovers and Evans has got to go and all of this sort of thing. We can just get on with talking about football instead of having an argument about whether or not Marcus Evans is good, bad, indifferent, or whether you'd rather have a bowl of Cheerios or eat his toenails. It doesn't really matter. He's gone. So we can move on, talk about something different. And I'm bored of Marcus Evans.
Well put as ever. And Matt sort of took over the bollocks saying. So you're back saying that as well. So I'm pleased to have that back. I want to go over to Harvey next.
I need to annoy people on social media a little bit more. I've done my feet. I need to do some bollocks now.
Yes, definitely. Pleased to have you back as ever. But yeah, you sort of mentioned a Welshman about running around Wales with his todger out. And that is good old Harvey, the sweet Welsh prince. I'm going to get his thoughts now on the takeover. I know he was very excited about it when it first got announced, or when the reports were happening. He was going, "Oh my God, let's get this done!" USA, and all that. So Harvey, are you happy? Are you buzzing, boy?
I'm very, very happy. I can confirm that I didn't run around North Wales naked, much to the happiness of the entirety of North Wales. I'm sure. I am absolutely buzzing. My kind of overriding emotion, kind of feeling, is honestly emotion. And the reason why I say that is because, they, like Jon and David have kind of been around to see, the kind of good times that we've been through as well. But, the kind of best memories I have of town really are a Paul Anderson equaliser in the playoff semi-final. And a Tamas Priskin winner against Arsenal. That's how depressing my kind of Ipswich memories have been. When Evans took over, it was kind of vaguely kind of remember him taking over, and and since then it has been a gradual decline. So to see real positivity around the club, something which we haven't had in such a long time, it's a real breath of fresh air. And honestly, I did feel emotional when it was announced. Maybe that's a bit silly, who knows? But that was my overriding feeling, because I feel like this has been kind of coming for so long. We're a massive club, and like has been said so often, we shouldn't be sat in League One, but we are, because of a series of errors and a kind of sleepwalking into the position we're in for so long. It's great to see how engaging they are. I'll never criticise Evans in terms of you look at the Boltons and the Berries and teams like that. And he did invest, was it 6-7 million a year? He did keep us afloat, especially during the times of the pandemic where you've seen so many clubs get into financial trouble. So I'll always respect him for that. But there was no doubt that it had gone stale a long time ago. He started kind of when he took over 13, 14 years ago. Football was a very different place then to what it is now. So we've got to move with the times. I'm glad we're doing that now. Of course, there's no guarantees. I can see some people that are cautiously optimistic, but I just lost my shit, and I don't feel bad for that. So I'm absolutely buzzing. Hopefully, like spot on what David said, we can focus on the what's going on the pitch now, and I'm looking forward to a summer of what's going to be immense change, not just on the pitch but off the pitch. The whole structure of the football club is going to change, and rightly so. We've been so behind the times. I've been saying this for so long, for a good few years, and that isn't going to happen. These changes aren't going to happen overnight. It's going to take a long time for these changes to be implemented. But for the first time in a very long time, I'm really optimistic about the future, and I think this is going to be a great move for everyone involved. Really, the town, the club as a whole, and hopefully, the good times are not so far away again.
Indeed, well said as ever. Yes, the good news rolling in. I want to go below you, Harvey. If you're watching this on video, I'm going below him, and that is Ben on my screen. I think it's probably the same on your screens as well. That is. But yes, Ben, a new dawn, a new era has begun. Are you excited? Are you looking forward? Are you strapping yourself in for a good ride, or are you a bit concerned?
No, I think we've got to embrace the excitement right now. I understand that there's always going to be a few doubts, a few concerns when you have a takeover, of our club. You feel like it's a family member. It's been generations of fans passed down for years, for decades, and you just feel a part of it. It feels like Harvey said, you get emotional about it. We've spoken about it in our family today, and that was the overriding emotion, was how much it sort of means to us. Watching the interviews last night, stayed up way past my bedtime just to soak it all in, despite the wife telling me to go to sleep, because it did feel a bit like Christmas Day. It's huge news. You can't underplay it. For other football fans out there, it probably doesn't even touch the Nationals, but for those involved in Ipswich Town Football Club and Suffolk as a whole, and the outer-reaching fans and fan base, it's massive news. If you can't get excited about this, then you probably shouldn't be following the football club. Touched by the words that they said. Brett Johnson and Michael O'Leary, I thought they spoke really well. To a certain extent, you've got to expect that. They're coming in. They want us to be excited. That they're certainly not stupid. If you look at American sport, they know how to do it in terms of marketing and PR, and I expect that we'll see much more of that moving forward. But that's a good thing. I think as a club, certainly we've been sleepwalking for years. And maybe as a fan base, a little bit as well, until a lot of us have got so angry recently about efforts on the pitch and off the pitch that, we've got a voice, but we can't do too much, particularly in the pandemic. So it's hugely exciting. I can't wait to see all the changes that are going to happen, hopefully around the ground and the match day experience. Get more excited to go to games when hopefully we're allowed to do that next year. To wipe off the debt is probably the biggest thing. 100 million basically in debt has been almost wiped off overnight, apart from a small bit left. Fair play to Marcus Evans for helping to do that, and I'm sure we'll talk about that a little bit later. But right now, the Stars and Stripes, hail to America. I'm not a huge fan of that country, but they've gone up in my estimation thanks to a few of their citizens over the last 24 hours. And let's embrace it. Let's all get there, Portman Road, August next year. And if they letting off fireworks and we have to sing the national anthem, I couldn't give two hoots if we get promoted and they whack 100 million in the club or whatever it may be. So, can't wait. I'm strapped in, Ross.
Yes, love it. Over to you then, Liam. I'm sure we're going to be planning a pre-season tour to America. Probably not this summer, maybe next. We'll wait and see. I'm sure you'll be happy to give me a road trip for that. How you feeling, Liam? You buzzing about this? Good news for once for us to talk about.
It's a new dawn, a new day, a new life, and I'm feeling good. I cannot believe that it's happened, because it came out of the blue, really. I mean, the rumours had been around for about a month, and then obviously it all went quiet, and we had people saying it's off, we had people saying it's on, all these people that David was referring to as knowing this and knowing that, and talking about Evans this and Evans that. And then all of a sudden it was just strange, because I think it was Harvey in the chat that I think dropped a message in early on yesterday morning, just said, seems to be a lot of talk going on. And I didn't really think about it at all. I just saw it and thought, the rumour mill has gone up again. And then all of a sudden, around midday-ish or whenever it was, suddenly I saw the tweet come up from the club for the official announcement, and it was just like, what? And just from there, it's just been absolutely crazy. But I mean, for me, it had to happen. There has to be a caution. I'm not going to go around and be completely and utterly, that's it, brilliant, we're off to the Premier League, that sort of stuff. But it's a takeover, and the proof will be in the pudding of whether the guys can actually deliver what they say that they want to deliver. But the signs all look good. But I just think if you flip it on the other side and go, well, what would another year, 2, maybe 3 under Marcus Evans, where would we be in that time? And I just think it's all about energy. I think under Evans, it hasn't been an energy in the club, in terms of, he's talked about all these, be a failure if I didn't, under my stewardship, get the club into the Premier League, and we want to do this and we want success. But there was never really an energy behind the scenes to do that. And you've seen the decline in the whole club, not just the standard of players, but I mean, you look at Portman Road, looks a bit shattered in places, and it's only been the last year that he's actually started doing something as simple as getting it painted. And it's just things like that, just letting things kind of drift and so on. Whereas these Americans, there might be a little bit of concern that we might go on to a bit later about this pension fund. But at the same time, that risk should be giving them a massive drive to succeed, because they know that they've got a pressure to do that. And so they should have the energy behind them to really get behind the project that they're putting in place. So I'm delighted. I think it's what the football club needed. But yeah, a little bit of caution, because I mean, if we've only got to look at the last 13 years to kind of see what can happen when things don't go right. And as people said, Evans hasn't been a terrible owner, but he hasn't been a particularly good one either. I don't think he's got many things right. I think he expected to get Premier League pretty quickly, and it didn't happen. he then found himself way out of his depth in terms of finances involved, and most of the championship overtook Town in terms of financial side of things, and Town ended up just kind of having to stick mid-table really under McCarthy. So, I mean, I've heard people when Evans came in at Norwich flashing money up in the air and waving it in the Norwich fans' faces and stuff. Well, 13 years later, pretty much haven't beaten Norwich since, are now looking like going to be 2 divisions apart again. I mean, it's so yeah. There has to be a bit of caution, but I'm delighted. I think it had to happen. Good energy now, hopefully going forward. Lots of exciting things. Maybe as a season ticket holder, I might get a decent compensation package this year now, because I wasn't expecting much from Evans, to be honest. And yeah, looking forward to the future now. Whether that's in the Championship next season, although I highly doubt it. But if we do, what an extra buzz this summer will be if we did get promoted.
Definitely. Finally, then, over to you, Jon. Jon Watson and co. As I said on the main pod, I'm very sorry, gentlemen. I did know you were going to be on, but I forgot the people, the names, and all that. Anyway, I'm digging myself a hole. Jon, I want to quickly just ask you about. I'm sure you've seen the interviews, you've seen the press conference. All great things were said. I'm going to open this question to the floor. Their thoughts on Brett Johnson and Mike O'Leary. Quickly, of course, your reaction on the takeover, and just maybe lead the way on your thoughts on the press conference and just in interviews. Everything's been fantastic.
Yeah, what a few busy few days for all of us Town fans, and I probably got more excited today than I was yesterday. I think I was shocked at first yesterday because I've been a little bit. My graph of skepticism has been quite high. I was sick of hearing about people pretending to be in the know, and my mum works in a petrol station and once saw somebody eating a hamburger or a hot dog, so that must mean we're getting an American takeover, And it's not about me, it's not about any of you, it's about our football club. And none of us should be trying to talk about glory, about who found out what. It's just about, this is bloody good news potentially for our club. So I was shocked at first, and I think I tweeted out something along the lines of what Stu and Andy, I think it was Andy Warren, had said about being cautiously optimistic. But actually, I've got more and more enthusiastic and more optimistic as the last few hours have passed. And that came from listening to the little snippets of O'Leary and Johnson yesterday, and then seeing the full presser. I watched it in its entirety this morning. I read bits of it as it was coming through on Andy's live feed last night, and then read it, the full transcript this morning, and watched it. And I really enjoyed seeing them speak. There's something about, you get a better connection when somebody's actually, even if it's on the screen, when they're talking without a script. Didn't they both handle themselves well? I'm not the first person to say this, so I'm not trying to take any credit for it. But I think we've heard more things from Mr. O'Leary so far and Mr. Johnson so far than we probably heard from Marcus Evans and for 10, 13 years, whatever you want to say. I thought they spoke exceedingly well, with confidence, with charisma, with humility, with integrity. They were proper gentlemen, but businessmen as well. I think Mr. O'Leary reminds me a little bit of Murray Walker, the former racing commentator. Again, I'm over 30, Ross, so I've probably been told. I'm proving that point. But David,
I know what you're talking about, John.
Thanks, Liam. But
he's 30. That's why.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
I haven't watched motor racing since he retired.
Exactly, because he was that good. Hey, David. But
yeah,
he speaks really well. He didn't get fazed by anything apart from maybe the camera angle when the BBC reporter asked him to move the camera angle because she was trying to make her press conference. But I thought he made it so much more credible. The fact that he's a proper English football man, if you like. I know I'm churning out some cliches, but my God, he knows what he's talking about. And if you think about when Evans came in, and we'll rewind to this, I got really excited when he brought Simon Clegg in. I'm going to say that out loud. I thought Clegg spoke really well. But what Clegg didn't know is anything about football. This guy does. I'm really, really pleased that he's on board because I think, you can't be involved in football and be highly regarded by other people in football unless you know something. And he clearly, he was passionate. He was appropriately humorous. He was engaging. And, Brett Johnson came across really well too. I think, what he's obviously done at Arizona United, or Phoenix Rising as they're now known, obviously, is credible. And he's been there for a decent amount of time now. He hasn't just been there for 2 years and then sold up and gone somewhere else. And they were all quite confident in speaking about the part that Marcus Evans has played in that and over that 14-month period. So I think we've got to, Paul Cook has said Marcus Evans has been really good with him. Lambert's always said Evans has been good with him. McCarthy did say lots of nice things about Evans, etc. I think Evans probably gets a lot of stick because we haven't been successful, but he also has done a lot for the club. And I'm a big believer in most people. I've said this to you before, Ross. Most people get up in the morning and try to be a good version of themselves, or not necessarily. You might not put your best pants on and your best shirt and go, yeah, this is the day. But you generally want to be at your best most of the time. Nobody goes, I'm going to be 10% of myself today. And I'm sure Marcus Evans took over Ipswich with the best of intentions and the best of financial support that he had. He chose how much of his massive wealth he was willing to risk. And I think he spent a hell of a lot. So, there is I'm mature enough to be able to go, he's putting a lot for this club. I don't like the way he's handled things. I think he's got lots of decisions wrong. But anyway, I'm going on to the more negative there. The positive for me is we've got a football man in, and the football man, in the sense of one of the investors, is already into football. So I think it was on the main pod today. I can't remember who said it, but it said when Marcus Evans took over, he had no knowledge of football. Brett Johnson and co have got 5 to 7 years worth of different experience now, as well as all the years of watching, being interested in sport, all that kind of stuff. But they're ahead of where Evans was, and probably a bit more savvy when it comes to the business of football. Well, for me, I lapped up the press conference. I couldn't get enough of it. I've read loads of bits today. I've had a bit of interaction on Twitter when I can with various people. And I think the general feeling, and we're not stupid enough to say we speak for all fans, but you speak to enough fans, Ross, and we all are fans, that the vast majority of fans seem really positive about this. And I think we're right to probably have a little bit of cautious skepticism and a bit like, oh, what could it bring? But actually, we also need to look on the table at that and go, we're probably in better hands now than we were. We're certainly feeling more optimistic. And if the press conference and their interaction is anything to go by so far, we're going to feel more connected to our club. And that has to help. Again, Lambert talked about things like, when this club turns, it's going to be really special, and it's going to turn. I think we've just taken a massive turn for the right direction because, and let's be fair, guys, how happy have we been this season? We in our little group chat the other day, we're talking about how many games have we enjoyed this season, and I don't think we got past 3. 3 in a season. That's shocking, As Harvey's been saying for months now, a total reset of the club. Well, Harvey, you've got it. This is a total reset from, looking at catering in the ground, from looking at technology. Surely they have to look at fitness. I mean, they mentioned that already, but that's been something that's our fitness coach is still in Scotland, isn't he? So
got a lovely garden.
I'm sure he has. But I think there's a lot to be really excited about, and I thought there was a touch of class by Brett Johnson today when he said that for the days he can't be watching Ipswich in his season ticket seat, that he's going to give it to a fan who needs it. That's within 24 hours of buying the club. He's come out and people going, "Oh yeah, I want to be part of that." Well, that's building excitement. That's building momentum. That's giving people something to be positive about. So it doesn't matter which podcast you like. It doesn't matter which, obviously there's some great podcasts out there. Ross, you were on Naked Football the other night, and I did enjoy listening. Last night it was, and I listened to Blue Monday, and us guys love chatting, and we're all real fans. But this is about our club coming together. And my only plea, I guess, would be that we don't suddenly expect Saturday to be a different team. And I hope suddenly in August, when we start the season and third game in, if we have a narrow defeat or a narrow victory, we don't start going, well, the bloody takeover hasn't worked. This is a long-term project, isn't it? We need some people to actually have some realism, because we know there's going to be a muppet here or there on Twitter who's going to start saying, well, Derby are doing better than you, owner. It's like, get out of the playground, boys, girls, he, she, them, whoever, and just have a bit of realism. This is a chance for our club to get better, to be a better club, to have better communication, to have better recruitment, better staffing structures. Hopefully, the appointment of a CEO, which was talked about massively, there's the talk about who that might be, and we can speculate on that, and it doesn't really matter yet. But who would you rather trust to get this decision right? Marcus Evans, based upon his track record of appointments with CEOs come football people, Milne, Clegg, not particularly great appointments, were they? And Lee O'Neill seems like a really nice fella, but I'm not sure if he could do everything that was needed. I'm sure he's good at lots of it, but maybe he had too much on his plate. But, I would love to see them. I'm sure O'Leary's going to have a hand in picking that person, because he's going to be the link person, isn't he? And he'll want a really key person. That's a crucial appointment. But my God, this is an exciting time, Ross. This is really positive. I'm not going to talk about Rochdale. This is looking forward. This is exciting. And yes, there's a bit of risk, but there's a risk in Marcus Evans. Marcus Evans is being putting less money in the last few years than he previously did. And who can blame him in some ways? Because there's only so much time you want to keep throwing money after, good money after bad, I suppose. But when we talk about ethics of backers and things like that, when we'll talk about pension funds and all that kind of stuff, I'm not particularly keen on, lots of people will say Marcus Evans is a glorified ticket tout. He's selling, now he's not. He's buying tickets and selling it in hospitality and that kind of thing. But there's some people who question some of his history, if you like. I personally think he's been all right. I once had the pleasure of speaking to David Sheepshanks when he was chairman. When we were 4-0 down at half-time at St James's Park, he came to thank the fans for making a long journey. And as I lived in Sunderland at the time, it was only 12 miles, so I told him that. And he said, well, it's the rest of them you need to feel sorry for. And he came out to speak to us. What a gentleman he was. And what a lovely person he was. And probably, he saw us through some good times and also a bad time. I would like to think that these guys are going to see us through lots of good times. And let's hope that this is a 10 years of Ipswich getting better, stronger, and being in a much more positive place. And there is absolutely no reason why our club shouldn't be in the Championship by the end of next season. So, happy days.
That was a a passionate and very good speech, Jon Watson. Life coach in the making. I'll say that right now. I think a lot of people love you to be a life coach. But yeah, as I said, I opened the floor for other people to mention the press conference and everything. Yeah, David, we'll rotate back over to you because we haven't heard from you for about half an hour now. So, take it away.
I've been nursing my foot merrily. So, I mean, at the start, I said I had a certain degree of skepticism. It's not really skepticism; it's wariness. That's the thing. Is I don't want to get overexcited by something. But the press conferences, there were sort of things which leapt out at me, and I'm not. I don't know whether we're going to talk about the sort of more negative side of things with Evans' ownership later, but the positive things that I've really liked from that, and some of my worries have sort of eased because, you know, foreign owners, any form of disruption, will it work, will it not work, and so on. John's already said they're football people, you know, whether it's the owners themselves in Brett Johnson and that, or the involvement in, you know, Galatasaray and Phoenix Rising, all of those things. O'Leary is clearly a football person, and I think that's one of the chief problems we've had over the last 13 years is regardless of anybody's criticism, I don't think that Evans truly understood football as an industry. I don't think he understood the types of people you need in different positions. I don't think he understood that you can't parachute somebody in from a different industry into this one in the same way. And I don't think that he understood the way in which fans work and need communication. And you look at the Accrington chairman, who's fantastic, you know, the way in, and I mean, I hate Peterborough, but their chairman is a damn good chairman for Peterborough. He communicates really well with them, and credit to him for going on outreach with other, you know, fans and things like that. And so we haven't had that. And one of Evans' big problems is he's been completely absent. He's been silent for years. You know, he pops up and does an interview with the program once a year and thinks that's communication. Johnson's already broken all of that down. You know, and today, the email of today saying that your season ticket renewal isn't coming this week because it's going to be reviewed. You know, straight away, there's something happening. Now, that might be that they can look at it and go, yeah, well, that's absolutely fine. That's great. But it already suggests they're looking at other things. And that communication lifts the mood. And the mood around the club for years has been poisonous. You know, it's not under McCarthy. McCarthy's football stultified things because it was don't give any prisoners away. Football, and it's not the direct thing. We can go into that again another time, I'm sure, but it's just the defensive. Then you've got Hurst, then you've got Lambert, and you've got the owner in the background, and you've got the lack of investment, and you've got Norwich doing well, and just everything. You know, everybody's at each other's throats, and that must go through, you know, into the staff behind the scenes and things. And just lifting the mood makes a difference with proper football people, and they seem very focused. You know, they've mentioned fitness, they've mentioned the stadium, they've mentioned training, they've mentioned modern things. You can't stand still. All of the things that you'd want mentioned, all the things that we've talked about repeatedly, that I've talked about in pubs that are wrong, they've immediately gone, yep, there. So there's the focus. And I also, because I have, some of you may have noticed that I'm quite political at times. I don't know, you know. And I would have had a major issue if it had been some sort of dubious Arab or a Russian oligarch or something who was busy fleecing the working people by appropriating their oil or something. But these guys seem to have a strong sense of social responsibility. What Brett Johnson was saying about what they're doing in Rhode Island and the way in which football teams can regenerate an area and all of those things. I'm really impressed with that it's not just about the return. It's not just about I'm coming into this and it's a business thing. It's also about the social responsibility to the town. So I'm pleased with that. And the other part within that, and somebody mentioned the problem with the pension fund and needing a return on their investment earlier. They talked about that in one of the conferences, which I just went, oh, cool. Yeah, happy with that now. Yeah, pension funds need return on investment, but it's not sort of right. We're investing in that. We want that straight away. They said, they said they've got this sort of spread of investments from this is giving us a return. This one is a high risk investment, but it might do in the long term. So it's not one of those things where if the pension fund don't get us promoted in 3 years, they're going to pull the plug, because this is a long term thing. So they've got this balance of investments, and that was something which pleased me as well. So all the things they've said have made me go, yep, this is probably a really good move. And Evans has actually negotiated something which is good. And give him credit, he's written off £80 million. And can we say as well, credit to David Sheepshanks, because when he negotiated the sale to Evans, part of that deal was Evans can't sell up and load the club with debt. So Sheepshanks deserves a bit of credit for that one as well.
Yeah, well said. And I want to go over to Harvey. I want to get Ben and Liam's thoughts on the press conference as well. The main takeaways from you guys. And as John said, and other people have said, Brett Johnson and Michael Leary have said as much, or they've said more than Evans has in his 13 years of tenure. In the first hour of being the owners, doing the club interview and then doing the press conferences and even just doing TV stuff. So that is a positive into Harvey. Just them actually seeing their faces, we actually know what they look like.
Yeah, I think it was for the first 6 or 7 years. I don't think anyone knew what Marcus Evans looked like. He was sat with the fans, I think, wasn't he? And probably the person sat beside him probably didn't have a clue who he was. So, yes, it's about that engagement with fans, and they've mentioned it already how important it is. And the key for me is, I think it was John that mentioned it, that they've been there and done it. Granted, they've done it in different leagues, but they've got that experience behind them. They know how the football industry works. They recognise clearly that they haven't. This is a new experience for them in terms of not doing it in England. So they've got someone in who knows English football and knows how it works. And what I really liked about the new chairman was when I think one of the first questions was how excited are you all to become the new owners of Ipswich? And one of the first things he said was, well, we're not really the owners. The fans own the club, and to hear that straight off the bat for me was just it was really nice to hear. And of course he's going to say things like that, isn't he? He wants to get fans on board, but it was a really, really nice thing to see. As I said, I've been really impressed with O'Leary. And what you've got to remember as well is he's 68 years old. He probably doesn't have to do this. I'm sure he's more than comfortable in terms of finances. But when he was asked, why Ipswich? Why do you want to do this? And he said, I'm genuinely excited. And that to me again was a real kind of made me feel even better about the whole process, because he's really invested in this, and not just financially. He really wants the club and the town to succeed. So, from the interviews that have been kind of taking place so far, we couldn't have asked for any better. He's been engaging with fans on social media, which I know can, when it's going well, can be good, and when it's going not so well, can go the other way. But as Ipswich fans, we are so patient, it's unbelievable. And you ask any Ipswich fan around the globe, no Ipswich fan will sit here tonight and say, we've got this new ownership in, they're going to bring in significant funding, as they've called it. We want to win every single game. We don't. All we want is a team to be proud of, and a team that we can wake up on a Saturday morning and think, oh, brilliant, we're playing today. And I think, if we're all honest, over the last kind of 12 to 18 months or even longer than that, I've as much as I absolutely adore Ipswich Town more than anything, I did wake up sometimes and think, oh God, here we go. Then another dull performance, and another, and it's still an element of that now. But what I'm trying to say is, I feel like and it might be a bit premature to say it, but I feel like we are getting our club back. We're getting that engagement back. The club is a massive, massive thing for the town, and I know I live in North Wales, so I can't, directly have that kind of, opinion. But it's so obvious, and that's all we want. We want a team that we can be proud of. We want to win occasionally, of course, as every team does. But that's all we're after, really. We just want to wake up on a Saturday morning and be excited. And I can only speak for myself, but the majority of fans that I've spoken to, it's a real sense of excitement. So what they've brought to the table so far has been extremely positive, and I'm looking forward to what the next few months will hold, because it's going to be a hell of a ride for sure.
Definitely. And are you still riding that roller coaster then, Ben, as I strapped you in? But yeah, I don't know why I said that, but we'll move on. But Ben, you've heard what the other guys said. Did you enjoy the press conferences? Of course, they're going to say the stuff they're going to say, but it doesn't seem it was forced. It doesn't seem it was scripted. They're just saying it as they would, because they are saying what's in their head and what they want to say, because they're passionate about this project that they're going to be leading.
Yeah, of course. I mean, you could question it. You could just say, "Oh, they're coming up with the same sort of platitudes that you'd expect from new football owners," and you can be as sceptical as you like. And some people, have every right. Of course, everyone's got a right to an opinion, and they can be sceptical and nervous about this new venture that we're going on. But as I said firstly when I came on, I'd rather just be much more excited and embrace it. To see their faces just so enthusiastic and talk about our club so glowingly, when even the most ardent of fan over particularly the last 18 months, it's been a real hard old slog. During this pandemic, when morale of the human race collectively hasn't been probably lower since the World War II, etc. In this country, we've got something to be excited about. Everybody has, every town fan has, and that they started that. Those two press conferences. O'Leary and Johnson, I thought, just spoke very well. Both different, both spoke slightly differently in terms of their tones. Johnson was a bit more, maybe because of the accent and the American thing, felt like a bit more of a razzmatazz, and he had his scarf and his cap on and spoke
his
about
swag.
His swag. But even the mention of the family, I do think, again, I'm being a bit of a skeptic, but his family, he knows we're a family club. Lots of kids, lots of families come to Ipswich Town. He's definitely put that in there. That I'm sure that was planned. I haven't got a problem with that. It's nice that his kids want to feel involved, and the whole family will be there, and he'll try and get over here when he can. O'Leary was impressive just from his experience, his experience of being at West Brom and Oxford, talking about the plans for the club on and off the pitch. So that I think he was really reassuring. For those who are wondering, or slightly worried, Johnson was more the here we go, like you're saying, Ross, strapping for the ride. We're not here for the short term. We're here for the long term. And his business partners and the stuff that you've seen on the news with Didier Drogba is obviously one of their sort of partners, investors in their groups. That's exciting. I think as Mark Heath commented, he could definitely do a job in League One. Wouldn't that be Champions League and then Didier Drogba? Obviously that's just a pipe dream, I think. But no, the news conferences were a breath of fresh air. We touched on it. We didn't see or hear from Marcus Evans for far too long. And it just made it look so simple. It's made it look so simple. These clubs that do the right things, I'm thinking of the likes of Brentford, and as a neutral, I look at them and hope they get to the Premier League because they seem to do things right. Unfortunately, that lot down the road do a lot of things right on and off the pitch. And as much as I dislike them as a club, and you go there with the rivalry, I'm not an idiot. I'm respecting them for the things they do well, and we've got lessons to learn from them there. Leicester, for instance, I think they're fantastic with everything they do and the way they interact with their fan base. If we're getting an inkling, a tiny smidgen of hope that we could be one of those clubs that people now look at, thinking, cool, aren't Ipswich a really well-run club? Oh, I'd like to go down there and have a look at that. Attract more fans possibly. First and foremost, try and get us promoted out of League One and sort out all those things that John listed. Your fitness, your off the pitch. There's facilities around the ground, that fan interaction. But yeah, everything that was said in those press conferences it's just the starting point, Ross. I'm very enthusiastic. It was great to hear people talk so glowingly about our club.
Definitely. And, well, let's dot the I's and cross the T's, as the phrase says. Liam, let's take it away and finish it up, my friend, and then I think we'll briefly go into the Evans tenure, because I think we've mentioned different things during this chat, but I think it's always good to go across the room to get your thoughts on Evans' tenure at the club. But yeah, Liam, your final say on the press conferences and just the first sort of words coming out of those new investors and the chairman's voice.
I think the big thing is, especially when they were asked the question of why Ipswich, and they talked about they looked at something like 40 other clubs, potentially something like that, and they had been looking around, and they ended up wanting Ipswich. That they saw Ipswich as the best option, but in some ways Ipswich was probably one of the hardest, as O'Leary said in the press conference, that although obviously COVID has thrown a massive spanner in everything in the last year, and probably drew out negotiations much longer than what they probably could have been. The fact of the matter is Marcus Evans wasn't at the very beginning even in the position of wanting to sell, and their want to be in charge of this football club has ended up giving Marcus Evans a decision to make. And because of everything that they've done to obviously convince him, he's finally said, yes, I'm happy that you are the right people to end my tenure. And they've carried on fighting for it, even though there's been quite a few obstacles in the way of buying Ipswich. And I think that's the big thing, that they want to be here. They haven't just looked at any old English football club and think, right, we're going to choose from A, B, and C. They've properly looked into their options, and they've decided on Ipswich, and that's what they've stuck at, and they've got the deal done. I think from the American point of view, I mean, we talk about foreign owners, and obviously the Premier League has a lot of them because that's where the cash cow is, and obviously that's where inevitably Johnson and the rest of these Three Lions group obviously want to be, because that's where the return on any investment is going to be made, is in the Premier League, and of course you want to be successful, and the Premier League is where it is at in English football. But I think what's really impressive is that, as we've all said, they are football people, but what they've done is they've got a portfolio of clubs, and we can talk about America, and we can talk about American football being it is growing, but you can still say it's
Soccer.
Still a bit tin pot compared to other potentially European leagues, for instance. But then you look at the club that they own in Denmark. They also have now bought a share in I think someone's got a share in a French club somewhere, and obviously that link with Galatasaray with one of the guys. They've all got different interests of different clubs throughout. And it's almost as if, and of course, Johnson at the very forefront of them three, obviously with his projects in America. But it's almost as if they've built up to this. But they've started in America, and they've built a football club from scratch, and have tried, and they're trying to turn it into something special. They're doing another project in Rhode Island as well. Then they've got other football clubs across Europe, and it's almost like they've taken a step by step, and now they're coming to England, because England is the juggernaut. That is the one that, if they can crack England, that is the one where everything will fall into place. And if they can get Ipswich Town back into the Premier League, the money that they'll get from it, but the glory that they'll get from it as well, which would help all their other clubs in their portfolio and help them with projects going forward. I mean, we're talking about potential links between football clubs now. I mean, that there was. I mean, I don't think it'll be something that will happen straight away. But I mean, Johnson spoke about maybe some of our younger players going to America and learning it, and maybe some Americans coming across here. And I honestly think that because of all that, I think they really know what the challenges are. And the fact that they've come into this with their eyes open, I don't think you look at them and go, they're a load of wealthy guys who have no idea what they're doing, and they're just having something that they can occupy their time with and may get a very good return at the end of it, but we'll see what happens. They obviously have come here to really, really improve the football club, and as I think it was David said, give it back to the community and create that community back with the club, which is what they've been doing in America. And I think that's something that I think is going to be really special, I hope, after pretty much 13 years of disconnect. And O'Leary himself, I think he spoke fantastically. He knows what he's talking about. He knows what he's doing. And I think also you can see that he's got that soft spot for Ipswich with that anecdote about him being at the 78 Cup semi-final in the West Brom end, and seeing Ipswich obviously beat West Brom and go on to the final, and obviously, as we all know, go on and win the Cup against Arsenal at Wembley. But just his fact that it was like he was so kind of mesmerised by Ipswich that day that he convinced some of his friends and him to support Ipswich in the final against Arsenal. Maybe it was just because they were the underdogs, but they went and did it, and he's always had this soft spot for Ipswich. So I think there's something a little bit more personal as well for him now that he's part of the club, that he wants this to succeed as well, because I think he knows the history and he knows where Ipswich Town were and potentially what it can be. So I was very excited and very happy about what they spoke about. Yes, there is going to be PR, but at the end of the day, I think, as you said, it's all natural. I think they're really excited to be here. And it's not that excitement has come through to excite the fans, not them trying to put on a facade to try and get fans on side. I think they have naturally got fans to really like them because of their energy and passion for what they want to do going forward.
Wow, well said as ever. And yeah, I saw your hand go up a few times, John. I did spot that. Do not worry, my friend. What else did you like to add? And then we'll move into the Marcus Evans tenure. I want to get everyone's statement on just Marcus Evans' tenure. We'll do a quick statement because I think we've spoken a lot about the takeover, and I think a lot's been said. But yeah, John, sorry, take it away.
Yeah, I just wanted to say that, I do enjoy listening to what other people have got to say, and I really resonate with a lot of what Liam's just said there. I think that's one of your best speeches, Liam. I'm a big fan of what you just said there, because I think what came through was that desire to want to be part of Ipswich Town from them all, and they're not chances, are they? They haven't just got off a plane and gone, let's buy a club, let's get the first club we can. It seems like it's been a really methodical, well-planned decision. So I kind of really back what Liam was just saying there. A couple of very quick points, Ross. I like the fact that, in the conversations that I've read and listened to, they've talked about, I think it was Brett Johnson was asked about would younger fans be the target audience, and he said all fans, men, women, children. Like, he didn't just go, oh yeah, that's a really good idea, and be taken down the path by the journalism. He just took it. Yeah, of course, yeah, but we want all fans. I thought that the way they responded, they knew their stuff. Sometimes when somebody's blagging something, you can easily just give them a line and then they go with it footballers do it all the time, don't they? It's a tough game today. Yeah, it was a really tough game. But these guys spoke so well about what they wanted. I thought that came across. One of my favourite things that was said was, again, it was Brett Johnson said, we've got a history of trying to attract good people and good players. And then what we do is look after those players and develop those players. And therefore, other people want to come and join and be part of something special. That's exactly what you want to do. Like whether you've got your own business, for me in a school, I try to look after my staff team and want them to be there so I get the best out of them. But I also think it's the right way to treat people as well. But when you've got a good team, that buzz comes through and other people go, well, I wouldn't mind being part of that. Everybody speaks positively about each other. I'd much rather be there. That's the kind of culture you want, because let's be fair, we haven't had a great picture of things. People can say one thing, but we haven't felt it. We've heard it, but we haven't felt it. And also they talked about the academy, and now it's very easy to say, how many players have we heard say, I've looked at the training ground and I've been out on the pitch, and, we've heard the same thing, but they talked about wanting to improve the academy, not because we've got an academy, and seeing that investment in the academy long term is something that is needed. And I like the way they were talking about the priorities. There's a lot of priorities, but we just need to put them in the right order. And that, again, was O'Leary speaking from experience, rather than saying, oh, we need to paint the stadium. We need to do this with the tickets. Oh yeah, let's go over there. We haven't got a clue. Let's just run around and paint things blue and hope for the best. This is somebody who's going to sit down with a team of people who have been there before and gone, actually, the team comes first. Let's back Paul Cook. And I'm sure the one little white lie I think that was told was, there's no way that Paul Cook didn't know this was happening before they spoke to him yesterday. I don't believe that for 1 minute. But fair play to them all, because I think, Cook obviously was the change was, again, let's give Evans credit for that. He could have sat it out with Lambert, and we could have had, it's named normal. The boys have done it very, very good for a few more weeks and months. But actually, we've got a good manager, and they're going to back him. So I think that's really exciting. And the final thing was just when they were looking at which club they wanted, I think the fact that, I come from Sunderland, and Sunderland's very much, everybody in Sunderland supports Sunderland. And Washington, that's in between Sunderland and Newcastle, is half red and white, half black and white. And you're either one or the other. And then it's all Newcastle. You go to big cities like London, it's completely spread out, isn't it? In Ipswich, you've got a good geographical patch where that is your catchment, both for young players, but also for fan base. And they've obviously done their homework properly on that. So I think we should give them credit for what they would call their due diligence. I think they've done their homework on us, and they've come in knowing a lot about us. So that says something to me. But, I was optimistic about Marcus Evans when he joined. I'm probably more optimistic now, and I'm probably a bit more cynical in life because I'm a bit older. I'm over 30. Never going to
live that down, am I? Never going to live that down.
Never. It's when you start saying over 40, I'm going to get them that too, Ross. I'm that too.
I'm over 50.
Overall, let's just all be really clear that they've said some really good things, and if they deliver over the next year, as well as their first days being in sense of PR, delivery of press conferences, engagement with fans, then we're going to be in a better place come next summer already, aren't we? I think they've started really well, and they've given me, from that cautious optimism in 24 hours, I've suddenly gone, yeah, I'm all in. I'm in. I love you. You're brilliant, and that's what you want as a fan. You want to be carried away. I'm not a businessman here. I choose to spend my tenner a week on iFollow and buy Ipswich mugs and Ipswich shirts like the rest of us. That's my choice. But I tell you what, I wonder how many fans have looked at the Phoenix Rising kits today. I certainly just did for a laugh, just to see what they were. And, it's a bit of fun, but I'm buying into it already. And I hope lots of fans do.
All right, well said, as ever, John.
I bet you'll see a massive, massive increase in season ticket sales now. It'll be. I would not been in no doubt if Evans had still been in charge, but we probably would have only seen maybe 6,000-7,000. I think we would have lost a few other thousand from what we had on from this season. And I honestly think that. Whereas now, I can see us pushing back towards. I mean, it is dependent on what league, but I think even in League One, with this positivity now, I can see people reinvesting in the club again.
Definitely. Yeah, John. Yeah, go for it.
Because I didn't lead you on the way you asked me to, so I'm just going to say my Marcus Evans summary. If I was his head teacher, giving him a summary for his report, I'd say had the best of intentions and tried hard, but unfortunately didn't reach the level that we all hoped he would for the club. And the club didn't do as well as we all thought or hoped. Unfortunately, I think his lack of not financial support, because I think Stuart spoke really well about that on the main pod, but I think his appointments, of non-football people or people who might have been good businessmen but were out of touch. Some of his managerial, I mean, I never wanted Kane. Where Jewel came from, I've got no idea. I still don't understand that appointment. And I know Brad, who's one of our Game Day Extra Time posse members, who is obviously on tonight, talked earlier on in the group chat and mentioned a really good point about kind of some of the lack of investment under, lots of us talk about the playoffs. But I think Brad's point, which I'm going to give him absolute kudos for, but I'm going to mention on his behalf, was that, he replaced Murphy with Leon Best, ultimately, didn't he?
Just cry. So,
So,
carry on.
Basically, the summary is he tried hard, but he didn't deliver. And ultimately, we went down to League One for the first time for 60 years, whatever it was, under his leadership. And we're in a worse position now, arguably, both on the pitch and off the pitch, than we were when he took over. So that's failure. But at no point, and some people on Twitter and on the crowds or whatever will say, call him all sorts of names and stuff. But let's be fair, this man has given a lot of his own personal wealth to keep our club afloat. And I'm sure he's done his best, or he's tried to do his best. When he appointed Lambert, I'm sure he thought he was doing well, but why he gave him a 5-year contract? So tried hard, but didn't deliver. There you go, Ross. There's my little pitch for you.
That's brilliant. David, you've heard John's summary of Marcus Evans' tenure. Over to you to summarise his 13 years at the helm.
I've just been very quickly trying to put my former report writing head on to try and do the same thing with those sort of vaguely positive but actually meaning something different statements. Can contribute well to class when he's focused. And so I think the above, I mean, credit to him for putting the money in. He's kept us afloat. He after the going into administration, all of those things, and you can't take that away from him. And one of my big defences of Evans over the years has been, okay, you're mouthing off on Twitter about Evans being a waste of space. Where's your £8 million a year to keep us afloat? If you're wanting us to stay afloat, that's £8 million a year baseline. Then you need to put in that, because you're wanting to sign Tommy. Okay, great, cool. Where's your 20 million? Have you got that? If you haven't got £28 million to hurl at a football club every single year for a decade, shut up. Has been my thing about Evans throughout the entire thing. Cool. So I don't think you can give him any criticism for the funding, because it's money that the club doesn't have. He put that in. And his commitment to the club is shown because besides writing the debt off, also He's still investing. He's still got a 5% stake. He's not just walked away and gone, well, I've done that. Bye. He's still there, but he's just behind the scenes. He's not part of the running of the club. And that shows a commitment, which I think is a credit to him. I think the problem all the way through has been his lack of knowledge. And I said this earlier, lack of knowledge of football. I think that he was out of his depth. He saw it as another business, which wasn't the same as his other marketing businesses. That's fundamentally the problem, which goes through his backroom appointments. It goes through lack of investment in whether it's recruitment, whether it's fitness, all of those types of things. And what Lambert said when he came in, it was tired. It hadn't been dealt with. I'm sure he's right. There's Budleyers in the roof of the Churchmans. If there's plants growing inside your stadium, you've got a problem. So that's the sort of thing. But I think the biggest thing for me, which pulls him down, is it was all seemed to be hope rather than having a plan. The ambition, or we hope we can make the playoffs, or we're punching above our weight, or whatever like that. You look at similar sized clubs historically to Ipswich. You're looking at Leicester, you're looking at the West Hams, you're looking at Derby, you're looking at Forest, you're looking at those middle-sized clubs who can attract the high 20s, low 30s. Definitely historically better than Norwich. Norwich's crowds are bigger than ours, obviously, at the moment. But you're looking at those other clubs, the Bournemouths and Brightons, they're smaller than us. And they are punching above their weight and we're punching well below. And all of our narrative for 5, 6, 7, 8 years is a bit about hoping to make the playoffs, hoping to do that. And that, for me, is his big failure, isn't to build up that expectation that you can do it and we should be doing it. And if we're not matching a side to get to challenge for automatic promotion from the Championship, to absolutely, not vaguely hope, make 6th on the last day of the season with a shot off somebody's arse, but actually walk League One, because we should walk League One. So should Sunderland, frankly. Portsmouth are a different kettle of fish because they've rebuilt from the bottom upwards. But we should walk that. And in the Championship, we, like Derby and Forest, ought to be doing a damn sight better. In Premier League, a side like Forest, Derby, Ipswich ought to be matching sides which are getting sort of that 30,000 crowd level, which puts you into the upper end of mid-table. That's where your natural position is to be competing if you've got a decent manager, decent infrastructure, decent set of ambition. We haven't done that for years, but we haven't talked about it either. It's never been on the agenda. And I think that's a big part of where Evans has failed, is not setting that expectation high enough. It's been hope. Overall, I give him a 6 out of 10. He saved the club. He kept us going. He's pumped money in. He's done his best, but it's ultimately not good enough. So thanks for that. I never hated him. Never thought he was a terrible owner, but I don't think he's been the best owner by a long stretch either. We could have had worse. We could have had better. I want to see us replicate those clubs. I mean, Sheffield United, Leicester, we should be above Sheffield United in size. I love Sheffield United. They're great, but we should be above them historically. And they're a well-run club. So that's where we need to aim. And I've got confidence in Johnson that that's exactly what he's doing. He's setting that bar really high. If you set your bar at make the playoffs and you miss out, you're there. You've missed out, you're 8th. If you set it on first and you just miss out, then you're in second. That's the thing, is you've got to set your bar way above what is realistic. And then you can overshoot what's realistic and get that dream. And that's what I like. I have a problem with Americans quite often because, but I like that culture whereby you set you aim for the stars. That thing is something which I really like. So that's what I'm looking forward to. And it's, for me, Evans' big failure is not having that ambition.
And of course, that's one thing that Paul Cook said in his press conference, aiming for the stars. But, yeah.
Oh, one last thing, and this was it was just mentioned in passing, and I'd thought about it before. I would love to know how much credit Frank Yallop, one of my favourite ever defenders, gets for this, because he was their first manager, wasn't he? and Brett Johnson referenced him in his press conference, and I have a sneaking suspicion that Brett Johnson had a conversation with Frank at some point right early on, 14, 15 months ago when this was starting. And I think that Frank Yellop probably deserves a pat on the back for putting this in motion. If not actually the nudge, but just sort of getting the ball rolling in the right direction. So one of my favourite defenders, and credit for that one, I hope.
Definitely. Harvey, I'm going to put you on the spot here. In one word, how would you describe Marcus Evans' tenure, and give me your summary of his 13 years?
One word. Wow. Failure. Ultimately, I think he said so himself in the last interview he did with the club. I think, he said that if he didn't get Ipswich Town into the Premier League by the time he left, then it would be deemed a failure, and that's absolutely how it should have been, how it should be looked at. It was optimism when he came in, the whole kind of burning money and all that. I don't think that'll be happening this time. And it was at the time, it was a kind of a new era for Ipswich, but unfortunately, as it's been discussed, it's just gradually declined over the years. A handful of errors, probably his biggest success. And I know, a lot of fans might not like to hear this, but was appointing McCarthy. That's probably his biggest success as town owner. And I know ultimately that didn't end as well as we would have hoped. But Mick did a great job, and that's probably for me anyway, his main kind of takeaway from his ownership. We have to give him credit for pumping money into the club each year. I know John's mentioned that it's kind of gone less as the years have gone on, which is true, but he's still kind of, for example, you never saw any headlines of Ipswich not paying players or not paying staff or anything like that. So you've got to respect him for that, and then you look back to bids at the time for. The one that sticks in my mind was it $7.5 million? Was it Leicester from McGoldrick? I can't remember if it was Leicester or someone else that was rejected. And he's clearly wanted success for the club. It's well known that his family are big Ipswich fans. He's well invested. If he wasn't well invested in the side, he wouldn't have spent his Easter Monday away at Rochdale. Let's be honest. When he knew that obviously this was happening the week after, so he clearly wants success for the team. But ultimately, it's his lack of experience in the kind of football world, if you like, that's let him down. A catalogue of errors in terms of not just managerial appointments, but player recruitment has been really, really poor. And I know that's not kind of directly down to him necessarily, but he's the one that's funding it. You look at when Hurst came in, where although we were kind of itching for a new kind of a breath of fresh air in the squad, to let so much championship experience go and bring in these kind of League One, League Two players was obviously a mistake. And there's numerous incidents where errors have been made, which ultimately has left us in the position that we're in. So yeah, it has to be deemed a failure because we're in the lowest position now than we have been for a very long time. So, and I think, as I said, he would and has admitted that in the past. So certainly not the worst owner in the world. There's a lot worse owners out there, as we've seen. That you look at the old Leeds owner, who thankfully they've got rid of now. I think his nickname is the Manager Eater or something ridiculous like that. Who left them in all sorts of bother. And as I said before, Bolton and people like that, and the Bury owner, who was just unbelievable how he passed the EFL test. So, like I said, it was ultimately a failure, but I'll always respect him, and I'll always, I'll always have a good feeling towards him in terms of keeping the club afloat, especially in the last 12 months where, everyone knows Marcus Evans' businesses. He's in the hospitality industry, so his businesses will have taken an absolute wallop from the pandemic. So, especially the last 12 months, I'll always respect him for keeping the club afloat. And as he's always said, he will only sell the club to investors that he believes will have the long-term interests of the club at heart. And I really, really do believe that. As much as we criticise Evans, I really don't think he would have sold it to any Tom, Dick and Harry that have shown that they've got a few quid in the bank. I certainly wish him all the best. It's a shame that it didn't work out, but you look at the crowds when we were allowed in the stadium, 10, 11,000 at times and things like that. So it was right that it's come to an end. It's been coming for a few years. Out of 10, I'd probably go 5. Again, I'm just a little bit lower than David, only because ultimately, as I said, it's not worked out. But you have to give him credit for keeping the club afloat each year. So 5 out of 10. Hopefully, the new ownership and the new people involved in the club will take it over and have a real positive impact. As I said, not just around the club, but around the whole town. Give the whole town a lift.
There we go. The one word, failure. Ben, over to you. Your summary of Marcus Evans. My one takeaway of Marcus Evans' era is having a wee next to Marcus Evans at Burton away on the opening day of last season. You'll be thinking, why am I in a toilet where the big bosses are? Basically, that's the only toilet I could find. And Marcus Evans, I looked across and he was there. So there we go. Over to you, Ben. Summary.
What a fantastic anecdote, Ross. And I'm so pleased that I can follow that. That's probably the highlight of the podcast. No matter what happens now, I've had a wee next to Marcus Evans. I mean, if you want a one-word answer, sort of mediocre, really. We've sort of been in limbo land of not really going anywhere. I think, as I touched on with the press conference section, that it's so nice to be excited about something, because I felt nothing for so long. I remember when we could go to games, we'd go to a game and if we'd lost or not performed well, I ended up not really feeling devastated because I didn't really expect much in the first place. And that's not what football's about at all. You should be going with the excitement. I mean, you referred to the Norwich game in the playoffs, and Harvey said that was sort of like a highlight of being, in terms of his Ipswich fandom, along with the Priskin goal. I mean, what a sad state of affairs that Norwich playoff game was the highlight of Evans' tenure, you've got to say, I would have thought. Of course, I think we've all talked about it numerous times, that there was a sliding doors moment. I remember that film because I'm over 30, Ross, Gwyneth Paltrow and Hannah. It was obviously the playoff year when we bought Freddie Sears and we didn't invest as we should have done in that January. And I think all would have been forgiven if he'd given Mick, like Harvey said, probably the only decent appointment he did make managerial-wise. If we just had a bit more money and really gone for it, and who knows, could have got promoted, and we wouldn't be sat here having this conversation. But he made too many appointments that they didn't pay off. It felt like he was trying to play a different game to everybody else in football. Money-wise, it was passing him by, couldn't keep up. And then there are other teams that David mentioned who, yes, they've had a bit of money, but they've done it cleverly in terms of the way they've sold their players. They sold at the right times. Harvey said the McGoldrick thing, 7.5 million at the time from Leicester. I remember that was January transfer window, August. I remember being away at the time, and I didn't want him to go, but as it panned out of his injury record, it would have been a very good amount of money that we could have reinvested. Everything he did, we feel like we're trying to cut corners, I think, or we didn't really know what he was doing. A bit like me at school, I'd leave it to the last minute and hand it in and hope it was good enough. You sort of had that kind of feel about it. And football's a very, complex business. You've got to be so thorough. You've got to leave no stone unturned. Like O'Leary said in his press conference, we've got to be better than 23 other clubs at everything we do. I'm not sure under Evans' tenure that we've been good at almost anything, other than, against the other 23 clubs. So he's written off the debt. He's kept us afloat. You know, obviously huge marks for that. And I've never been one to shout at the rooftops and ask him, you know, demand him to leave. We just wanted him to leave because of we need a fresh approach. We need this new dawn, as you've called it, Ross, and this new injection of life. And I can't wait for that. Marcus gets 5 out of 10, the same as Harvey, because mediocrity is what we've had for too long, and it's a chapter that's going to close with a tinge of sadness, because with his connection, he's obviously an Ipswich fan, and it's very good of him to go to Rochdale. But I don't feel sorry for him because he's a multi-millionaire.
Yeah, true. He'll be heading to Barbados, and going on his yacht and all that. So yeah, Liam, let's close this chapter, as Ben said, and finish off with your summary of Evan's tenure as owner, and we'll move on to the other news. We're playing a game this Saturday, which is going to be unforgettable as well. So yes, take away.
My one takeaway would be stagnation. I think that's a word that sums it up pretty much. I mean, I'll start with, I think, the positives. I think the first thing is he saved the club from more financial hardship at the beginning. He's obviously continued to invest in the football club in terms of keeping things going and obviously keeping the club afloat. And in terms of now, he's sold to what he thinks is the right people, and as we've just said about the press conferences and stuff, we're pretty excited about them. So we do think that these are the right people, and you've got to give him credit for that, as well as obviously the fact that he's decided to take a massive hit to the debt that was owed to him for all these years of investment. He's on the rut pretty much 90% of it. I mean, £80 million been written off is a lot of money, especially as what Ben just said about the hospitality sector, that it's very it's been pretty much savage during the pandemic. So in terms of that, his businesses have probably suffered massively as well. So to then underwrite £80 million for the football club to help the new owners coming in, it is a great gesture. But ultimately, it did fail. Harvey's term of failure, it did. You can't look at it any other way. I think David summed it up perfectly about lack of football knowledge and football people. I think had he come in and brought in the right people, then we might have been talking differently, but he didn't. And his own lack of knowledge from that stemmed through, and there was no one there really to challenge him and really educate him on how to run the football club properly, really. He had his people in who pretty much didn't question things, and as Ben says, that sliding doors moment of that playoff in January 2015, that year, I mean, that is a time when a football CEO or chief executive or whatever you want to call them, a football person who is in the football club goes to Marcus Evans and says, right, here is your opportunity. Grasp this with both hands. Please give the manager more money to bring in better quality players, but we can get this over the line. And in the end, Town ended up a few loans. Obviously, Freddie Sears came in, who wouldn't have been that expensive, coming in from Colchester, and some free transfers. And in the end, Town ended up dropping all the way from being top of the table to scraping in on the last day into 6th place. So it's a bit shocking, really, for a businessman who obviously must be very astute at what he does have made so much money, but for some reason not to have been able to grasp that opportunity when it was right there in front of him. But everything else, he's made mistakes. I don't think anyone can say at the time Roy Keane was a mistake, because I think Roy Keane came in with the promotion at Sunderland, and everyone thought, right, this is going to be the big time. And Keane clearly failed badly. And since then, he's almost like, as soon as he got his fingers burnt, that was it. He decided that he wasn't going to kind of give free rein anymore. He was going to rein things back in. But as Ben said, it was like cutting corners. It was basically talking a good game and saying, we're going to do it this way, we're going to do it that way, but trying to do it on the cheap almost. As David said, it was more about hope than expectation. It's kind of, he's going to reduce the amount of investment in terms of the playing squad, and he may have kept the investment going for the rest of the club and to keep it going. But it's like the Daryl Murphy gone and Leon Best in. I mean, that it's just it's downgrade after downgrade, and then all of a sudden we've ended up with Mick McCarthy leaving. In comes Hurst. And suddenly we've got even more downgrade of players until we've ended up with the squad that we've got right now, who are absolutely pony. But you can't just say that the players in that first team that have been bought in are absolutely pony. You have to say that some of the youth players who have featured haven't been up to scratch either. And I say this, and I'm sure Mark probably understands, but Drynan isn't very good. and that's the problem. We haven't got a load of young, really talented players suddenly coming in who's banging on the door. And you're thinking, oh, wow, they're going to make a difference. We haven't got that. And it's that lack of investment throughout in terms of the players we've brought in and in terms of the players that we've got at the club coming through the youth systems, but has left us to the mess we've got today. And I just think he's gone through everything, talking a good game, but not having a plan and trying to do. It's almost like he's scrambling between different plans on his deck. Right, plan A hasn't worked. Right, we're going straight to plan Z. let's see if this works. And it's just kind of picking a different plan after plan after plan to try and find something that will work. And it never did. And that's why it's ended up there. And you've got a team that, even with all the financial problems that Town had, going from a team that was in the playoff mix to get back into the Premier League into a team that is now sitting mid-table and pretty much horrifying everybody with what that absolute dross on Monday was 13 years later, even though technically the financial situation is a lot more stable. So it's kind of like he's kept the club alive, but it's almost like it's been on a life support without any signs of life under him. And I just think it wouldn't have gone any further had he stayed. But I mean, all credit to him for trying and keeping the club alive, which is the main thing. And yeah, he's taken a back seat now. He still is part of the football club, but yeah, I would say 4 out of 10. He's failed, and I don't think he's particularly made very good decisions. So I don't think he deserves to get half marks for that, apart from the little bits of credit that he does get for keeping the football club still in existence.
Okay then. Yeah, John. Yeah.
Very quickly, I just thought, I read it on Twitter, so again, it's not an original thought, but I liked it. I just thought it perhaps to sum up Marcus Evans's kind of era is that we drew 0-0 on Saturday and had no shots on target against the mighty Rochdale. That probably sums up where we're at. So that's not a good position to be in, is it? So, when he took over, we were arguably a lot better. So, 0-0 away from home perhaps sums up his bank holiday Monday afternoon as a kind of a nice metaphor for his ownership of the club. Just doing enough to get by with no sparkle, with no excitement, with no oomph. So there you go.
Go ahead, Liam.
I just thought I listened to the main pod earlier. I think what might be the best way, and we all hope that this is the way that we define the Evans era, is that the main kind of takeaway from it hasn't yet happened, in the fact that I think Hutchie said it in the main pod, that basically we're hoping that from all these 13 years, actually, the biggest impact that Marcus Evans may have had is selling the club on to people who have returned the club to a state of being competitive and maybe back to former glory. So in the side kind of weird, kind of twisted positive on such a languid 13 years, it actually may be that the biggest thing he'd done at the very end could actually define his entire time at the club, and I'm hoping that is the case.
Definitely, as I said, I've strapped Ben in. John, David, Harvey, Liam, let's come and join him and let's enjoy the ride when we can. But in other news, we play MK Dons on Saturday. The Joys, they are currently sitting in 13th while we're sitting in 8th. I've just looked at the last 5 games. 4 wins and 1 defeat. So the defeat was their last game, so their winning run is over. But will Russell Martin want to get his side back to winning ways? So I'm just going to quickly go over to you guys, get your predictions. Please do not say another goalless draw, because I don't know if I could take that again. All the positivity that we've had this week has been amazing, definitely after that Rochdale draw. So John, I want to go over to you first. As you've been going first the last few times, so I thought I'll continue doing that theme and I'll go over to you, David. But you're top of the league in the prediction league for game day, extra time. So what is your prediction? What is anyone else going to copy?
I'm going to say a 1-0 victory to Ipswich Town. I think it's going to be a scrappy, tight affair, and we're going to somehow manage it. That's me being optimistic, Ross. 1-0 to Ipswich Town.
All right, I'll take that. Just not another 0-0 draw, as I said. David, over to you. You were saying 3-0s recently, or a couple of weeks ago now, since we've had bad results. You've not been going with that. But what do you reckon? Do you think the players...
to be optimistic.
Yeah.
Rochdale doesn't make it easy. I mean, as somebody said earlier on, the number of games this season that you've enjoyed, but equally, if you're honest, the number of games of the season that we've deserved to win when we have won has been, a lot of those wins, really, did we deserve it? You have to question it. For 2 reasons, 2.5 reasons, I'm going to be optimistic. The half a reason is the takeover is going to give all of those players just an extra spring in their step, and because they're doubly playing for the contracts now, because we've got a bit more budget to bring other players in. That's the half, because I don't really believe that, so discount that one. That's bollocks. The other 2 reasons. One is I just think that we'll scrape something. It's one of those, it'll be tight. There'll be 3 shots on target the entire game, 2 for MK Dons, 1 for us. It's going to be dire. Ross, you're going to have your head in your hands. It's going to be freezing cold. It's going to be grim. But it's going to be a 1-0 win. And the other reason is because I absolutely fucking hate MK Dons, because they shouldn't exist because of Plough Lane. So they stole the club from Wimbledon. They don't deserve to be in the league, and therefore I can never countenance giving them a win for anything ever. 1-0. Just.
So you are copying John there with a prediction because he's gone 1-0
I've got it
as well.
written down here. I've written it down before.
I believe you. I believe you. But well said as ever. Harvey, what you reckon there, my friend?
I'm not quite as optimistic, I must admit. I wish I could be, but as excited as I have been all week and buzzing, since it's been announced, the reality is they're still the same below average players. I think MK Dons are a decent side. Russell Martin's gone in there and done a good job. I know it's the whole Ipswich Norwich link, and I'm sure a lot of fans dislike him, but he plays kind of 3-5-1-1 formation, which seems to be working quite well for them. They pass the ball around really well. They've got some decent players. The lad Fraser, who usually plays off the striker, is a really good player. So it's going to be a tough game. But, they've been on a decent run, as you said, apart from that last result where they lost. So I don't think we'll lose, but I'm going to go for a 1-1. Only because, as I said, that they're a decent side, and quite frankly, Colwyn Bay under nines could beat us the way we played against Rochdale. So I'd love to be as optimistic as the other boys, but I'm going to go for a draw. I'm going to go for a 1-1. And hot take, I know I haven't done one of them in a while. I think Ollie Hawkins is going to come on and score a header to make it 1-1. Why not?
Why not? I just want someone to score a goal, or just have a shot on target, please, or just have a shot. I don't care.
That'd be nice.
Yeah. Ben, our home form is not too bad. So possibly that could be a positive thing to talk about. I'm sorry to say, Ben, you are of course bottom of the game day extra time leaderboard, but you did come in late, so you've got a lot of points to get back up. But is it a time for you to shine and get them multiple points this weekend? What are you thinking?
The reason why I'm so rubbish at it is because I keep thinking we're going to win and score goals through blind optimism. I mean, last week I will tell everyone, anybody who's listening, I predicted 3-2 at Rochdale because I saw that they conceded 69 goals. I thought, any team who concedes that many goals, surely we can bag a few. And I'm not confident because I thought they'd have to save themselves from relegation. They'd go for it as well. How wrong could I have been? I think Harvey's right. I think it's going to be 1-1. I can't bring myself to say we're going to lose because that just sounds awful on an Ipswich Town podcast. So, yeah, let's say 1-1. I must say there is a huge caveat and asterisk to my prediction that there's murmurs that Norwood, Downs and KVY are getting closer to fitness. And if two of those three are miraculously fit enough to play, I think actually we'll nick it. I think we'll nick it 2-1 if two of those three play. So have a look at the team sheet. If two of those play, then my prediction changes to 2-1. But if not, 1-1. And I just can't see, even though it's fantastic and this has been a wonderful recording, so much good news and excitement around the club. I don't see how we're going to change it around on the pitch immediately. So sorry to end on a boring down.
That's right. We've still got Liam. Hopefully he will bring it up. But of course, the sad takeaway from this game is, that stadium would have been electric. I'm sure that would be, people who didn't have season tickets, I'm sure they would have gone out and just bought a ticket and wanting to go to. I know the owners. I don't know if the owners would have been there or not. Possibly it would have been, but that would have been a full house at Porton Road, and I'm sure that would have been a different, feeling going into this. But Liam, what do you reckon? You're going to go for a win and have a tight game, or are you going to be a downer and say a defeat?
I mean, I'm like David. I don't really want to give MK Dons any credit. I don't think we'll lose because I think defensively we've been okay. I mean, we've not been too bad defensively. We've conceded a few goals, but I think it sums up. I think Toto was the best player on the park in the 2 games over Easter. I think he was perfectly fine at Rochdale, and I thought he was pretty good actually in the face of quite a lot of pressure from Bristol Rovers. So I'm pretty comfortable that Town will be able to defend and not lose heavily. But do I think Town are going to score a goal? That's the big question. And if they do,
don't you say it.
can
Don't you say it. Don't you say it. Don't say another goalless draw.
No, I'm not going to say 0-0. Because I'm going to actually say, I was going to say 1-0 to Town, like David and John said. I am wavering though to think about maybe saying a 1-0 defeat just to be different, so that I may get some points maybe in the prediction league. Because frankly, I should care, because as I said earlier, if we got into the championship, then what an even bigger exciting summer we've got ahead of us. But I just don't see this optimism of where we're going to get into the playoffs, and then obviously in the playoffs we'll probably get comfortably beaten. I don't think we'll get battered. I just think it'll just be comfortable. I think we'll play huff and puff, and those teams will just have their arms out and keep us there, and we won't get near them. So I don't think we will go up, and I just think these players need to get in the bin. Because are you telling me that if Paul Cook, and we're saying that Paul Cook knew that this was going to happen when he was appointed a month ago, are we saying that the players didn't know that this was going on in the background, and yet the performances have essentially been worse since Cook has got in? It's kind of like, well, clearly, if people are thinking that the players might try and play for a contract now that there might be a bit more money on offer and really show what they're made of, well, I'm sure they knew this was happening in the background, and they clearly haven't shown it. So, frankly, they can all get in the bin to me. They really just haven't shown anything. But as the ever optimist, I will go 1-0 to Town. I won't say a 1-0 defeat, because I don't want to be that guy. And frankly, for you telling us all to strap in, I might just wait until the summer before I strap in and actually properly get on the roller coaster.
Fair enough, because hopefully we'll have an exciting summer in terms of signings, and hopefully fans will be allowed to go to games again, because it's been a dreadful season, a dreadful year. Harvey?
Yeah, I just wanted to very, very quick kind of change the subject as well. I just wanted to bring up the really, really sad news about the Yeovil captain, which I saw the other day, which is really, really awful, and kind of made me think about, because I saw Luke Thomas's tweet earlier as well about how, he's been kind of suffering over the last few weeks and wanted to take, a break from football and things like that, which just goes to show that, even as footballers who are a lot of people's idols, they can suffer as much as anyone. So it was just a kind of message to say that, if anyone listening is kind of feeling like that, or feeling down, or just wants to chat, feel free to message me, and I'm sure the boys will echo it as well. Even a chat about football, about the takeover or anything like that can really help someone. So it's just a quick one, just to say that, if anyone is feeling like that, then, like the rest of us, I'm sure we're happy to have a chat.
Well said, my friend. Well said. I think that's a perfect way to end up, John.
I just want to say, the last 12 months has been crap for everybody. And linking in for what Harvey's saying, isn't it nice that we've had so much more positivity to talk about? So linking with what Harvey's saying about people feeling down, hopefully this gives all Ipswich Town fans a boost, because, we haven't had a lot to cheer about, and little things, or things that aren't life or death necessarily, but your passion for football can be so uplifting, can't it? So, let's hope that the summer starts bringing some positivity back into all of our lives as well, and help everybody's mental state.
Definitely well said, boys. So yes, the new dawn is here. We're strapping in for a very good ride. Minus Liam, he's coming in the summer. But thank you as ever for listening. Thank you, Jon, David, Liam, Harvey, and Ben for joining me. What a show it's been. It's been a lot of positivity, some negativity about, of course, Marcus Evans, but that era is gone. It's now here for a new dawn. Thank you very much for listening to Game Day Extra Time. Make sure to follow us on all the platforms on Kings of Anglia. If you're watching this on video, hello. I'm sure you loved David's little walks around his kitchen, Ben going for a drink, Harvey going for a drink and all that. But it's just more for you to see us. And if you're listening on this on pod, it doesn't really, it doesn't matter for you. But I'm sure you'll have been loving hearing our voices. But enough of me. Let's wrap up. Thank you as ever for listening, and we'll see you next week, and hear us next week as well. Bye bye for now.